taking advantage of the fact that Pokemon Legends ZA was just released, and that we're at the end of 2025, we've basically decided to make a ranking of which Pokemon would be the most powerful. Pay attention, in the Pokemon lore in 2025. It's helpful to remember which Pokemon were the strongest this year for future reference, or for power level fans who are interested in knowing just how powerful the strongest Pokemon are officially. But before we start, and this is very important, I'd like to explain how the power level of the Pokemon was categorized, so you know the reason behind the rankings. And you can decide if you want to change the order of any of them. Some Pokemon have similar power, and using your judgment can be moved between spots. For example, I'll explain it below, but as a preview. If you want to move the top 1 to the top 4, you can do it, since the top 2, 3, and 4 have better feats. In other words, demonstrations of power and abilities useful for versus battles with other fictional characters, which the top 1, who was made to be top 1, doesn't have. I'm not sure I explained myself well, but roughly. Well, the top 1 was put at the top because of his ability to nullify attacks from any Pokemon, which obviously doesn't work outside the Pokemon world. So it's up to you if you want to rank them based only on the Pokemon's power, or if you want to analyze it more broadly for fiction in general. Stepping outside the Pokemon universe, in the case of the video, it was ranked only for the Pokemon universe itself. I think that's fair, and it's not right for us to say no. It's just that X isn't that strong, because if you put him in Dragon Ball, well, the other one does more. That doesn't really make sense for a video just about Pokemon. Considerations that were taken into account. 1. Feeds, mentions, and descriptions from all their appearances were taken. This is because although there's the issue that canon is divided by fans in different ways, some consider only the Pokédex descriptions canon. Others rely on the anime, some on the main video games, and others just choose their favorites. The truth is, for the Japanese, there's no such thing as canon, since they handle it as mainline products and spin-offs. It's worth mentioning that spin-offs do affect the mainline, because for them, spin-offs are things that serve as a complement to the mainline or for experimentation. And if an author decides to use things from the spin-offs and mainline products, well, they can do that. So that's why everything was considered, since that's how the Japanese do it, and after all, they are the ones who created these products. A clear example is crossover events between the anime, movies, and video games. For example, the movie Jewel of Life with Soul Silver, or the Darkrai movie with the Diamond and Pearl game, or events between video games themselves, like transferring Pokemon from Coliseum to Ranger or the main Go game. Also, Game Freak has consistency filters, so the power doesn't vary much between the anime, games, and manga versions. Maybe a little bit, but nothing too drastic because they don't allow it. Priority will be given to the feats shown rather than the mentions or descriptions in the Pokédex. There are 3 reasons which you'll clearly understand. First, sometimes a Pokemon has an exaggerated Pokédex description, but all the feats of the Pokemon in every product where it appears contradict the power stated in the Pokédex. For example, Machamp, Magcargo, Tyranitar, etc., which make no sense and seem written by someone on drugs. Second point, officially, the Pokédex entries are not regulated. What does this mean? It has been made clear in different products that the Pokédex is not only filled out by professional researchers, but also based on the beliefs of the people. Myths, legends, trainers, random people, and so on. So yes, it is full of misinformation. Third point, I think that if power is used, it's only fair to see how the authors interpret it instead of just interpreting a simple text on your own. Otherwise, analyzing power would be pointless. If we just use a few brief, questionable paragraphs open to varied interpretation due to hyperboles and metaphors, everyone will interpret them differently. Point 3. The ranking mainly shows how strong they are versus other Pokemon, and in battle, more than in their abilities. Since there are Pokemon with interesting abilities, but in practice, they're crap, which calls into question how their abilities really work. For instance, Magcargo and Glastrier should theoretically one-shot any nearby Pokemon just by existing, including most of those at the top. Their descriptions are possibly the most exaggerated with hyperboles and nonsense. Also, the attack's implications aren't considered, as that would be subjective. By this, I mean that for some people, destroying a mountain is a better feat than throwing ice at absolute zero, while for others, throwing ice at absolute zero is much better than destroying a mountain. Well, now let's start with a ranking. By the way, as always, the research work and help with the script has been brought to you by my good friend, Deepanacha, My go-to for power scaling in Digimon and the grave of debates. So now let's really get started. Origin Form Dialga and Origin Form Palkia, the duo of Papas from Pokémon Legends Arceus. These have only appeared in one game so far, but in that game, their power is made clear. These two Pokémon are the enhanced forms of Dialga with the Adamant Crystal and Palkia with the Lustrous Globe. These two items are larger variants of the Adamant Orb and the Lustrous Orb, but these two items are channels that allow Dialga and Palkia to power up and increase their strength. The Adamant Crystal and Lustrous Globe boost power, letting Dialga and Palkia take on slightly stronger forms. Let me clarify, since whichever one you face in the game, you must defeat. Throwing sedatives at it as if you were playing Dark Souls, and then throwing a Pokeball. This is part of the main plot of the game, so it's not a game mechanic. In the game itself, it's established in the post-game that both origin forms are weaker than Giratina. That's normal, since Bolo not only comments on Giratina's superiority over these two, but also in the hardest battle of the game, being the final boss of it. To defeat Bolo, the player needs to have completed many missions by the time they face him. You should have already caught the vast majority of the game's legendary Pokemon. Something important to mention is that the description of Dialga Origin and Palkia Origin is that they are capable of distorting, destroying, and creating time and space. Time for Dialga and space for Palkia. In both cases, it is mentioned that this is thanks to their enormous amount of energy, which implies that if they are weakened or their energy is drained, they are unable to do it. In the game, the Diamond and Pearl clans don't know about Dialga and Palkia, thinking they were one entity called the Great Sinnoh. When Dialga and Palkia confronted each other, space-time became distorted, and the image they saw was the superimposed image of both as a single being. Game Freak calls this representation Dalkia, and it's depicted as a statue in games, anime, and manga. Does this imply that most of the feats written in ancient text by the inhabitants of Sinnoh, like the journal in Pokemon Diamond, Pearl, and Platinum, or documents researchers use for context on ancient peoples, they're just headcanons from people in the past who didn't really understand what was happening? In multiple games, moments in the anime, movies, and the manga, it's made clear that information about Dialga and Palkia is almost non-existent. Well, it's almost a miracle just to see them even once, which makes the idea that researchers know about them invalid. Texts claiming they created time and space or that their existence depends on these ideas are just made-up nonsense. In the manga, Dialga temporarily ceased to exist when Arceus removed them, but recreated them moments later, and nothing happened. So officially, if they die, nothing happens. During Pokemon Mystery Dungeon, Explorers of Darkness, it's revealed that the Temporal Tower manages the planet's time. Dialga is responsible for caring for and protecting it, which is why he's said to rule over time. When there are problems in the tower, like when its gears are stolen, time stops and Dialga becomes Primal Dialga, a berserk version who seeks to solve the tower's conflicts to avoid dying. Although many don't see this game as canon, it's still the best and only official reason given for why Dialga rules over time. A similar tower may exist for Palkia, but this is unconfirmed. Dialga. He can rewind or fast forward others' time, but not stop it. As that's never been shown, isn't that the world? More powerful beings aren't affected by his energy, as shown in the manga, movies, and games, especially in Mystery Dungeon, Pokemon Rangers, and Pokemon Diamond. Although it might help him, that's why it's thought he can't do it. Can he use this time ability on other Pokemon with similar or slightly higher strength? A bit like what was seen when he trapped Giratina in a time loop in the Shining movie, although Giratina was able to break free in a very short time, so it hardly helps him at all. Notably, when Darkrai took the Tower of Time's gears, he gained temporal powers, and Palkia may have also taken gears from his own tower. So if someone tries to sell you the idea that Darkrai is more powerful than Dialga or Palkia in the Mystery Dungeon, that's incorrect information. Dialga and Palkia must charge energy before attacking, so you can't spam attacks. In the manga, it was shown how normal Pokemon like Mamoswine and Dragonite were able to put up a fight against them. It has always been shown in every format how the Red Chain is able to easily subdue Dialga and Palkia. In the manga, Rampardos could break this chain by force. And in Pokemon Legends, the chain was used to make a Pokeball that could subdue either legend in their form. Palkia in the Mystery Dungeon game is said to lose control over space when beings stronger than him are present. It's also worth noting that the spatial rend acts more like a burst than a cut from its origin world. It erases the space in the area, creating a void that pushes out everything that was inside that erased zone. This, according to what was shown in the manga. Both Dialga and Palkia have been shown to be capable of being subdued by mind control. by Hoopa. In movies, Arceus and manga and Eternatusen games have no resistance to mental attacks, so Itachi defeats them. They're not indestructible, as Arceus and the Unknown fragmented them at a quantum level in the manga, and Dialga broke part of Palkia's arm in the Darkrai movie. The origin forms are only slightly stronger than the normal ones, so they don't rank higher. The next spot is even stronger. I say they're similar because it's shown when Origin Dialga or Origin Palkia appears, depending on the route. The other one, whether it's Dialga or Palkia, it can stop on attack and stand up to protect the protagonist. Regigigas, this behemoth in the manga, easily subdued Dialga and Palkia, and could only be defeated in a 2-on-1 fight by them. While one might think that's the reason it ended up in this spot, the truth is that this guy has 2 other interesting feats. In the Hoopa movie, this is one of the few legendaries Hoopa released. He beat it by letting its own weight pull it into his dimension, not by attacking. We also have the fact that Giratina rides on top of it when they meet in the manga, avoiding facing it directly, since Giratina used a kind of suplex on it. The importance of this will be understood later. Although, according to the Pokédex, it can move continents in practice. The anime showed it was very hard for him to hold back a huge iceberg, unlike in the manga. He struggled to immobilize Giratina in origin form, despite help from other legendary Pokémon. Official art and manga show him moving islands. Even though he crushed Hitron as if he were made of cotton, when he tried to physically subdue Giratina, he could only hold him back for a brief moment. In both battles, Giratina was in its altered form, the normal world version. Officially, it's just called Giratina. This behemoth made his debut by beating the crap out of Dialga in his movie. In Arceus' movie, his sphere is larger than Dialga's and Palkia's, but smaller than his own. In this movie, he defeated Dialga again. In the manga, he destroyed Dialga's statue with a stomp after subduing Dialga and Palkia in his form. Origin in Pokemon Legends Arceus, Bolo considered Giratina a superior being. In Pokémon Master X, it's made clear. Not only is Giratina the strongest of the creation trio, but he also prefers to avoid talking about Arceus. When N wanted to ask him about this, Giratina, just like Dialga and Palkia, has been mentally subdued by Hoopa, Arceus, and Eternamax Eternatus. During the Hoopa movie, Giratina lost the clash against Mega Rayquaza when it used Giga Impact and Mega Rayquaza Draco Ascent. It has enough energy to slightly distort space or time, according to the manga. And its signature ability is to warp space to enter the world. Distortion in the manga. He was defeated by Cynthia's Garchomp when he was weakened after fighting against Sinnoh's legendary Pokemon like Giratina, Mega Rayquaza, and Mega Mewtwo. I mention this tie due to a Pokemon Super Mystery Dungeon dialogue, where Arceus says Mega Mewtwo has amazing psychic power, and Mega Rayquaza is shown as the strongest physically. Considering that both Mega Mewtwo forms are equivalent in psychic and physical power, with one specializing in psychic power and the other in physical power. As we already know, he brought him along because he is his equivalent. Mega Rayquaza not only managed to be superior to Giratina when they clashed in the Hoopa movie, but he was also shown to be superior. A, Cure in Black and White, which is a very good feat considering that Cure in Black and White almost made it to the top. Mega Rayquaza easily defeated both Primal Groudon and Primal Kyogre in a 2-on-1 battle in the anime, with Primal Groudon being almost as strong as Cure in White, though a bit weaker. Mega Rayquaza is often seen in the IP destroying meteors by crashing into them, which is impressive considering that one of these knocked out Arceus when he took one. Mega Mewtwo X and Y also scale from Mewtwo. It was already comparable to Deoxys in the manga, and Darkrai is also described as equally powerful there. Well, does it make sense for these two Megas to be so broken? Deoxys is Rayquaza's rival, and in its altered forms, has been shown as slightly superior to Rayquaza in the movie. But in the Generation original video animation, we saw that even with these powered-up forms, Deoxys was no match for Mega Rayquaza. Rayquaza in Pokémon Horizon matched 50% Zygarde, while Darkrai appeared in Pokémon Mystery Dungeon, Explorers of Darkness. The movie and manga stick closely to Dialga and Palkia's power, but it's usually seen as weaker than them. In the manga, 50% Zygarde was slightly stronger than Mega Mewtwo. This doesn't count since in the anime, 50% Zygarde lost to Mega Charizard, which lost to Primal Groudon earlier. And in Pokémon Horizon, 50% Zygarde. It was hardly equal to Rayquaza. Simply put, this moment will be considered a slip-up by the manga, which overhyped 50% Zygarde a little bit. Origin Form Giratina. This is the original, superior, and more self-indulgent version of Giratina. He's the post-game final boss in Pokemon Legends Arceus, and in the manga, defeated Dialga and Palkia alone. And to defeat him, it took all the Sinnoh legendaries facing him at the same time. After emerging weakened from the Distortion world, he was defeated by Cynthia's Garchomp. In the Shining movie, he quickly humiliated Dialga, making him create a time loop to escape, which Giratina soon broke. In Pokemon, distorting space or time only requires energy equal to a perfect level Digimon's destructive power. So, although the legendaries shown in the ranking have the ability to affect space with energy, physically, they aren't very strong. Even the strongest can only destroy small meteors or move islands with one blow, which makes sense considering that if Pokemon were stronger, they'd destroy the planet and 98% of Pokemon would die. When analyzing power level, remember Warwilding. Pokemon are living beings that in most cases require the same needs as animals. It wouldn't make sense for Pokemon to destroy planets with one blow. I'm mentioning this since we've seen creatures like Dialga drink water, and fans often mythicize Uncle Creation for affecting space and time. But as we've said in the video, even non-deity Pokemon can stand up to them. I'm mentioning this so people in the comments don't criticize the following Pokemon by comparing them to Dialga, Palkia, or Giratina, since they're part of the Creation trio that automatically makes them universal or beings above the power of the next entries, just because they have a title in their name which in practice isn't actually reflected. Eternatus, Eternamax. The trick is he ranks so high because he generates unlimited energy. Exactly like numbers 17 and 18 in Dragon Ball or Machine Dramon and Digimon. With this energy, he subdues some Pokemon who, while disobedient, become aggressive berserkers. Pokemon use this energy for Dynamax and Gigantamax. Among the Pokemon he can forcibly make Dynamax are the Creation Trio, Zygarde, 50 Regigigas, and Ultra Necrozma. While it's true that one might think he scales from these, the truth is he doesn't necessarily do so. Although he turns them into berserkers and makes them stronger, it's not convenient for him, since they could defeat him. The real scaling he has is the fact that this same unlimited energy has the potential to ruin entire ecosystems, and he can concentrate it to create a super questionable energy beam. Considering that in Pokemon Horizon, an energy with similar traits appears, and to be able to stop a beam like this, it took Rayquaza. Terapagos in its third form is a bit stronger than Zygarde at 50% and Rayquaza. And some rare Pokemon like Entei, that Paradox one I can't name, Galarian Moltres, and others. That means a charged attack from Eternatus Eternamax should be much like the third place Pokemon. It ranks lower due to low mobility, as Zacian, Zamazenta, and some average Pokemon defeated it in the anime and games. It's also known that not all Pokemon are affected by its energy. For example, Zacian and Zamazenta themselves. Unleashed Upa. Here comes the legendary Penetrator. This guy put a leash on everyone in spots 8, 9, and 10, plus other Pokemon from the top 20. This dog was so strong that it took 3 Arceus plates at once to seal him in ancient times. Fire, ground, and water. He can open portals to redirect attacks and objects. His attacks shouldn't be underestimated, as he defeated Mega Rayquaza with one hit in the movie. Note that while he can pass part of his body through his portals, he can't go all the way through them. The small Jupa manages to do it at the end of the movie, but it's unknown if he could do it in his unleashed form. He ranks so high because he would fight legendary ones alone, often facing 2 or 3 at once. The Pokemon's debut emphasized its power, ranking just below Arceus. Zygarde 100%. Here we have the protector of the earth, Superman. I've discussed its 50%, but what can he do at 100%? One of his anime attacks is stronger than several others' attacks. Mega Pokemon from gym leaders, top-tier trainers, the region's champion, and regular Pokemon. His attack when fighting at full power is equivalent to that of El Zygarde, which, as it's falsely claimed, could one-shot an entire region. He was much stronger than Mega Rayquaza, as this Zygarde's crafting elements included the megalith that Mega Rayquaza used as a Mega Stone. He was also able to put up a great fight against the top 2, Even though he lost in the first battle, in the second fight, he managed to defeat the top two. This was due to the help he got from Solgaleo and Lunala. In the Magarna movie, a regular attack is shown stopping one powerful enough to destroy a whole plateau. But Zygarde 100% was formed incorrectly, so after attacking, it reverted back from exhaustion. In Pokemon ZA, they gave it a Mega Evolution that's as strong as Zygarde 100%. So what's the difference, you may wonder? Well, now it can combine all its energy, plus the nearby light energy to fire its cannon, which matched in power with a laser that would destroy the region. After this Mega Evolution ends, Zygarde at 100% can use all its energy in one attack, but the Mega can also absorb surrounding light energy. So yes, basically Mega Zygarde is equivalent to Zygarde 100% performing a Z move. And this is even mentioned indirectly in the game, to make it a bit clearer how the ranking works. When it comes to raw power, the power. Could Dialga and Palkia destroy a region if their attacks clashed repeatedly? Regigigas can move icebergs and islands with effort. Giratina can overpower Dialga. Megas can destroy small asteroids with one hit, while Mega Mewtwo can lift an island with its mind in Super Mystery World. Origin form Giratina can slightly alter a region's space-time. Alone, he is a bit stronger than Regigigas in the manga. Eternatus Eternamax might be able to destroy a region or much of it with a charged attack. Koopa Unleashed. His attacks can't be scaled, but instead of destructive power, they seem to redirect attacks. Still, he beat Mega Rayquaza in one hit. That's impressive, since in the anime, Primal Groudon and Primal Kyogre's attacks barely harmed Mega. Rayquaza in the movie tanked an attack from White Kyurem, and in the Generations OVAs. Attack Form Deoxys couldn't defeat Rayquaza, so its attack must be stronger than White Kyurem's or Deoxys's. Zygarde. 100% is currently the only one capable of wiping out a region with one attack, but it drains all its energy. Note, some Pokemon, such as Reshiram and Groudon, can heat the planet enough to destroy the atmosphere. But that's not a feat of destructive power, it's more of a chain reaction, since even if they raise the temperature and the Pokemon die from the heat, therefore the planet and regions stay intact. I'm noting this to clarify that destructive power differs from destructive range. It's like comparing throwing 5 kilos of titanium at someone to 5 kilos of cotton candy at another. Cotton candy has more range, but titanium causes more damage on impact. Note 2. Remember that the ranking is based only on destructive power and/or strength, because if we based it on other types of abilities, the ranking would be different. Ultra Necrozma achieved this feat in the manga. It managed to defeat Zygarde at 100% in a one-on-one battle, though with great difficulty. That's all it has. We could also mention its overpowered ability to absorb light energy and boost its power, and the fact that it is always surrounded by the aura of Z moves. Also in the anime and manga, it is shown as a Pokemon with surprisingly high speed and mobility for its size. In my opinion, it's the best Pokemon for battles against other fictional characters. Its strength matches Zygarde at 100%, but it has better stamina, mobility, and can absorb light energy, being a move encounter for characters who rely on light energy attacks and whose strength is similar to or less than a region. Bara, a small country like Japan. Light energy in Pokemon is basically energy from nature plus light, just in case anyone was wondering. Arceus. Well, obviously, all of you could have expected this. He's here only because he can nullify Pokemon elemental attacks with his plates or tablets, whichever you prefer. It's worth mentioning that these can be separated from Arceus himself, either by his own will or by a very strong physical blow. Although the Pokédex says that he shaped the universe, this is based on the headcanons of the villagers of Sinnoh, who in the lore never actually interacted with him. He supposedly shaped the world with his 1,000 arms, which is also the name of the ring on his stomach. However, this ring has also been seen on Dialga and Palkia. What about when they're controlled by the Red Chain in the anime? The Red Chain can be made using the Lake Trio's power or by humans, and both versions are identical. It's also worth mentioning that this chain is connected to Arceus, but it's unknown how. All that's known is that it's made from the same most durable metal in the world, Pokemon. And now, get ready, because we're going to go through a lot of text about Arceus. Arceus in the manga, he didn't have his plates and was slower than Tiflosian. Though he could reflect elemental attacks, his own strength could only destroy a small building. In the manga, it was shown that a group of normal Pokemon were able to pull him easily, even when he resisted and even with the plates. Togekiss was able to slightly push him with brute force. The manga and movie both show that special abilities affect him. Palkia briefly held them off with spatial distortion, and in the manga, he was nearly caught by a heavy ball. In the games, movies, and manga, It has been shown that he is able to make the Unknown obey him, to perform actions he normally couldn't do, forcing the creation trio to disintegrate, absorb them, and drain their power in the manga. Or create a trio member. Creation in YBU format in the Pokemon Soul Silver and Heart Gold event. In Pokemon Ranger, he was once defeated by a human in golden armor, and when he returned for revenge, he demonstrated he could create a barrier to block the Pokemon capturer, Ranger. Still, his barrier was instantly broken by the Creation Trio's joint attack, letting the Ranger subdue his will with the Beyblade. That one they use? It's worth mentioning that in this game and in Pokemon Legends, Arceus, Papu Arceus is able to attack with thunder. They're so slow that even kids can dodge them by walking in both games despite the feat. That he's called God by the inhabitants of Sinnoh in Pokemon Master 6. During the Arceus event, it's made clear that only the people of Sinnoh consider him that. 1. Because for people from other regions, he's just another Pokemon. In the boot, after nearly dying from a meteor strike, he recovered and fought the Creation Trio alone. Of course, it's made clear that he can only use one plate at a time. And when he's attacked with a move for which he doesn't have a plate, he still takes the damage, even if a normal Pokemon attacks. It also shows how in the past he almost died against an electric-type Pokemon in Molten Steel. He survived only because they used the paddles when he was dying. In the movie itself, it's mentioned that these paddles are his vitality. So if they take them all away, he starts to die. And on the contrary, if you give him one, well, he starts to heal. In Super Mystery Dungeon, it's mentioned that he's just another Pokemon created by the will of the universe and that he can't go against it. He also mentions moving the sun or planet to stop a collision. Is this due to dark matter? Even after forming an army with all the Pokemon on the planet, he was still one-shotted by dark matter and turned into a statue. Later, dark matter mocks the Pokemon's weakness. In Pokemon Conquest, Nobunaga's shiny Rayquaza is noted to have power similar to Arceus. However, the music director of Pokemon Soul Silver mentioned that he wanted to give it an air of something that transcends everything, and that's why it has that music in its event. I think it's stupid to take this as a statement that it's omnipotent, especially when all its feats contradict that. In the Legends original video animation, Arceus appeared as Heatran, and with an Arceus plate, it replicated Dialga and Palkia's combined power in the anime. Arceus could only contain it using the water plate, suggesting his true power comes from the plates, not himself. It should be mentioned that some consider White Alpaca to be just an avatar of the true Arceus, but I'm sorry to tell you that this is not a buff for the original Arceus. By avatar, they mean his physical form, like what's shown with Dialga and Palkia in different products. These three Pokemon are pure energy and take this form to interact with the world directly. These avatars represent their full power. If you kill the avatar, you kill the Pokemon since the avatar holds all its power. It's never been stated that the avatar is only a fraction of its power. This is just a preference-based interpretation with no foundation. Among Arceus's good feats, we could consider that it's very good at fixing space-time problems, something like the Holy Beasts in Digimon. But I don't know if this can really be considered a feat of power, or more like an interesting defensive or support ability against beings that attack with space-time attacks. Although many people relate Arceus to a god, in reality it shares more traits with a demiurge. That's all for today. Hope you enjoyed the video. Please remember to be respectful in the comments. If you have a different opinion, I will listen to it carefully. In the end, we're just fans who like to research and share our opinions about this franchise. I know this doesn't make much sense because Pokemon is one of the most toxic communities in the damn multiverse. No matter what you do, you'll get hate, but it's still important to remind people to stay calm. If you didn't like the ranking, it's absolutely fine. You can make your own and it will be 100% respected. If you want more Pokemon content, support it. See you in the next videos. Bye.